Welcome back. Plenty to talk about on our media panel today, not least the big shake-up underway for Fairfax, Australia. Welcome to our panel, Bill Ralston, lister columnist, and David Walden, who is an advertising guru, I think is how we call you, David.
I love it.
Firstly, Bill, I'll start with you. There's been a lot going on, massive ructions across
Fairfax
the
in Australia, I mean, you know, they've trimmed 1,900 staff, closed 2 printing presses, sold down their share in New Zealand's trade meet of 51%, and also they're going to a compact size. They're talking about putting paywalls, or they are, in 2013, putting paywalls around the Sydney Morning Herald and the Age, and they've amalgamated the staffs of the Sydney Morning Herald and the Age. So they're effectively one newspaper, just with 2 different titles.
Yes.
Now, that shows you they're in deep trouble and sinking fast, because they haven't got their model right. They still haven't figured out how to make money out of digital whilst selling newspapers and not cutting your own throat.
Yeah, but Bill, media groups all around the world are grappling with how they handle diminished revenues and the digital revolution that's there, and the internet has become ubiquitous.
Yep.
We're all getting more and more stuff from the net rather than from the letterbox with the printed version.
So sell down on YouTube.
Well, exactly.
Trade me.
So they're both trying hard now to persuade us with paywalls and with various other payment systems to take the same information but pay for it in a different form. And how successful do you think that's going to be?
Well, I know. I mean, the interesting thing in Australia, News Corp has got its economic model so much better. You've got them operating a paywall system. They're trimming 1,000 journalists and people off their staff in the next week or so. You know, they seem to be on top of it. Fairfax is struggling hard.
But aren't there 2 different models, as I understand it? There's the kind of the paywall model where you pay. Then there's this kind of free reads model where you get 20, say, free reads before you have to start paying. And they sort of suck you into, give you a little taster, if you like.
Yes.
The difficulty with that is it's hard to start paying for something that you've got for free. And that's the big problem that these guys have, in that we have been educated to get news from traditional news sources like the newspapers in an online version and not pay for it.
Because we were always quite comfortable paying for newspapers.
Well,
absolutely.
Exactly. And, you know, it's a bit like television too. You know, as it gets digital, you're going to have to buy something to actually keep watching your free television, or buy an iSky.
Well, should we be surprised, though, that what's gone on across the Tasman? There was this week been, you know, alarm and surprise, goodness me, what's going on. Should we have been surprised?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's been coming for a long time, and I think they've, you know, there's been pressure and pressure and pressure, and you've seen newsrooms being, you know, decimated, no real investment in journalism, and now they're consolidating. As Bill said, 2 different newspapers, 1 newsroom, effectively. What you're trying to do is work with a increasingly slimmer and slimmer margin, and something's got to give.
Okay, well,
this week, 20,000. How many thousand jobs was it? 20% of the workforce.
Yeah,
a huge amount of jobs just disappeared.
Well, as an advertising man, where are you putting your advertising?
Well, I've got to tell you, there's still a place for the traditional kind of full page in the newspaper. And everyone predicted the demise of newspapers when online really took off. I think there's a lot more work going into online, but I think it's got slower. As we were talking, Bill and I were talking earlier, the take-up of online advertising has actually been a bit beyond the projections that the media companies all set out, and that's part of their problem. The new media stream, the new income stream, hasn't replaced the old one as quickly.
For every $1 Fairfax earns in print advertising, it's only making 18 cents in online.
Right.
And, I mean, what are online rates here? Is it dirt cheap or not?
Oh, no, it's not. But and what you've got to buy is be really careful how you buy it. And it's a whole new, I think, discipline for our media companies to learn how to sell that. But it used to be that you'd go into a discussion and at the end of it, they'd say, oh, what about online? Now you go into a discussion and online is front and centre.
That's extraordinary.
It's no longer the poor relation.
I want to touch a little bit on the editorial side of things as well. We've got Gina Reinhardt in Australia. She is, you know, the largest single shareholder now of Fairfax. There are all sorts of great debates going on about the future of editorial independence. Tell us a little bit about that situation.
Well, this is the richest woman in the world, by far. She owns enormous mining interests throughout Australia. The panic over there is that if she gets, as she wants 3 seats on the Fairfax board, it gives her control of some of the most powerful newspapers, The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald in Australia, and she's refusing to sign the editorial declaration of independence, which was basically that the board wouldn't interfere with the editorial policy of the papers. And she's refusing to sign that. So you've got the whole liberal left in Australia saying this is going to be the end of, it's going to turn into the Mining Gazette. You know?
Well, it is, isn't it, if she doesn't sign up?
Well, I think she's going to use her influence and her control to push her own agenda. And her agenda is to give the government a slap and get mining back in vogue.
We've seen Rupert Murdoch do that, haven't we?
Well, yeah, interestingly enough, his papers also have a declaration of independence, editorial independence, but it doesn't seem to stop him picking up the phone and talking to his editors, as we saw in the Leveson inquiry and things like that.
But was it even worth the paper it was written on, in fairness?
Well, I don't know, but talking about the worth of the paper, here's a thought about they're all going compact, the tabloid size. A full page in a broadsheet like the New Zealand Herald would have one value. Surely a compact Herald page would be worth much less. So they're actually, cutting the paper, cutting their revenue.
Well, they're going to, because you look at it now, it costs more for a full page in the Sunday Star Times in its large format than it does for the equivalent compact in the, say, the Herald on Sunday.
Right.
So if all of a sudden...
the Herald on Sunday has greater readership, doesn't it?
Doesn't matter.
In north of Taupo.
I'm not going to pay the same amount for a broadsheet if it suddenly goes into a tabloid form, and I'm sure that's going to be the experience in Australia when those 2 newspapers next March go compact.
Well, the Sunday Star Times, they say, is also going compact here, and they're going to regionalise it, which cut it into 3 regions is the gossip. Now that means they've got 3 times the regional base of advertising revenue, so that actually makes some sense.
We do talk about this, the papers compacting down, and we do talk about the tabloid size. We've seen this happen though a long time ago in the UK, and I know that's probably because everyone sits on trains and you take up 3 seats if you're trying to read a broadsheet. But we've seen the Times go the same way. Do you think a paper loses, not credibility, but do you think when something like The Age or the Sydney Morning Herald or potentially the Sunday Star Times becomes compact, does it take a bit of a mind shift for a reader to still view it as that great broadsheet it once was?
Well, you see, you're using the word compact, which is kind of lovely, except actually what we're saying is tabloid. And unfortunately, tabloid is related with the kind of seedier journalism, sensationalist stuff. I mean, there would be people in this town who would suggest that actually the sooner the Herald went tabloid, the better, because then its shape would actually reflect its content.
Well, the Herald would argue their content is more populist, if not necessarily.
Okay, let's talk a little about content, because on the Weekend Herald today, it's the Scott Guy murder trial across the front page. This trial has just attracted a massive interest in it. Why do you think that we're still day in, day out?
Because of the very rare way in which they've structured this trial on a chronological basis. So you have witnesses returning to the stand. And what that does is give the jury and the public a chance to actually really build an impression of those witnesses, like the 2, Kylie and Ewan McDonald's wife. You can see whether you want to believe them or take them into the family. You're taken into the family.
I think it's been extraordinary. It's been like being part of a soap opera that's been played out on news every night, and they're both very telegenic women. They both present really well. I mean, if this is the contemporary face of farming, then we're in good hands. What we've got is this story that is being relitigated every night, and it's compelling watching. It's like our very own soap opera, and it's there every night. Some
would suggest, Bill, that many people can perhaps identify with the Guy family, that everybody has a few family issues. There's always a bit of toing and froing between siblings and things. Is that part of it, that we can identify with this family?
I think because of the nature of the way in which the evidence is being presented. Normally in a trial, a witness comes in, they give their evidence, that's the end of it. But because it's coming out piecemeal, you are drawn in, and it is, unfortunately, it does sound a bit like a soap opera, and it has that feel to it.
But it's also got that whole tragedy element. I mean, we've got the murder, we've got the grieving widows, we've got the brother-in-law. There are so many strands to the story.
There's chocolate Labrador puppies, there are 6 children in the middle of it all.
There's a whole, I mean, I feel so sorry for those parents, because it must be really hard to have your family dirty linen almost being exposed every night, and also just every night it is relentless. It is leading the news, and people are watching
television, print, radio, it's all across. This would have to be the most publicised trial, I think, since, well, that I can recall. It's bigger than even Arthur Allen Thomas and things like that.
Yeah,
well,
and we're seeing this change in the way it's being covered too, because we're seeing online websites, news websites, updating as it goes. We're getting tweets all through the course of the day with quotes. It's extraordinary.
Well, this is the thing, these days, journalists actually are on Twitter, and you get updates of stories before they've even broken in the mainstream media. You know, I'm at the Scott Guy trial, this is murder trial, and this is going on, and they're tweeting, I think, underneath the bench.
Yes. And where do you see it going from here? Because I would assume that once there is a verdict, we will see, I'm sure behind the scenes there's work going on already, the big weekly current affairs shows will be all looking for a variety of angles.
The magazines will be as well. I'm sure, certainly in the case of the Guy family, they'd be insane not to engage a public relations specialist if they haven't done so already. I think everyone is beautifully made up and well attired in a way that looks as if they may be getting better.
Someone's writing the screenplay for the telly movie, because if we did one on Aramoana with this Bitchy Bippy, we're going to do one on this, because this has got all of the great elements of a human tragedy and a drama.
All right, David Walden and Bill Ralston, do very much appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Cheers.